Okay, now you can unmute, Yael. Unmute and start.
All right, thank you so much, Gary. Gaza, you hear me? It's all good? Just thumbs up? All right, let's do this. Good evening from Jerusalem. For those who don't know me, my name is Yael Levontin, and I am the PR and Communications Manager here in Israel for Jewish National Fund USA. Please note that these briefings will continue on through Friday at 7 p.m. Israel time, 12 p.m. Eastern, and 9 a.m. Pacific. We'll be talking to people on the ground about how we're getting back to a sense of normalcy. The ceasefire that took hold at 2 a.m. on Friday brought an end to attack of thousands of rockets on Israel, primarily against its southern population centers, and waves of IDF strikes on terror targets in Gaza. It appears to be holding since Friday, offering Israelis the first quiet in almost 2 weeks. Although fighting has come to a close for now, we still need your help. Please consider making a gift today to help support our loved ones as they rebuild and strengthen their communities. Marianne, please post the link below in chat. Others run an emergency campaign. We don't. We run an urgency campaign, not an emergency campaign. We were there yesterday, we are here today, and we will most definitely be here also tomorrow. We know that some of you may be connecting from your phones. We saw Russell and Marcy and Celine, who are in a rally for Israel in Livingston, New Jersey. Jewish National Fund USA is participating in all of the rallies across the US today in support of Israel. Every one of our marches is for Israel and against no one. I ask that you all stay safe. We see in Israel that the anti-Semitism has raised its ugly head and that there are attacks against Jews and against Israel. So please be smart and stay safe from all of us here worrying about you. I want to thank the president of Jewish National Fund USA, Saul Lizerbram, who is currently at the rally in San Diego for Israel, the board of directors and the task force chairs and committees, because everyone is playing a dynamic role. And of course, I would like to thank all of you, all partners of Jewish National Fund USA. Although the sirens are already behind us, the distress, anxiety, and great tension that accumulated during Operations Guardians of the Walls has not disappeared. According to Iran, it's a Hebrew acronym for emotional first aid, Israel's mental health hotline. Since the beginning of the campaign in Gaza, the association has received about 10,000 requests for assistance. That is twice as many as on weekdays. Every 10th request comes from a child under the age of 17, and most of the requests came from concerned parents. 30% of the referrals dealt with anxiety and 20% with acute mental distress that preceded and was intensified due to the emergency. 20% with referrals dealing with relationship and family issues, caring for younger children and older parents, and 30% with loneliness. We'll be speaking with a professional tomorrow regarding the work they do as a crisis hotline and what that last week has been like from callers in the South. In a little more than a decade, the impact of social media has gone from being an entertaining extra to a fully integrated part of nearly every aspect of our daily life for many. As quickly as social media has insinuated itself into politics, the workplace, home life, and elsewhere, it continues to evolve at lightning speed, making it tricky to predict which way it will morph next. Social media has become really fundamental to the way that billions of people get information about the world and connect with each other, which raises the stakes enormously. Many believe that the biggest challenge around the impact of social media may be the way it's changing society. The attention-grabbing algorithms underlying social media can sow confusion, ignorance, prejudice, and chaos, thereby facilitating manipulation and undermining accountability. Any piece of information can now get attention, whether it's true or false. This means more potential for movements, both welcome as well as malevolent. Before, only media companies had reach, so it's harder for false information to spread. It could happen, but it was slow. Now anyone can share anything, and because people tend to believe what they see, false information can spread just as, if not easier than the truth. Today, we'll be speaking with Lieutenant Colonel in Reserves, Roy Zinman from the IDF's elite A200 intelligence unit on conflict in the age of social media. Roy Zinman has served for 25 years in the Israeli Defense Force Elite Intelligence Unit as an intelligence officer and innovative leader. He took part in several groundbreaking projects with strategic national security implications. In his last role, Roy commanded the IDF's open source and cyber intelligence unit and rebuilt it to match the modern challenges of social media and big data analysis. At the beginning of 2017, after his retirement from the IDF, Roy joined Recongate Ltd, a high-tech company that specializes in online data analysis in the Chinese market. Nowadays, he's the CEO of Brand Fender, an innovative cyber threat intelligence company in Tel Aviv. Roy will be speaking about how social media was a major catalysator of the escalation in the events over the past 2 weeks, how the other side used social media to promote their narrative, and how Israel supporters responded, how the social media community and algorithms pose a challenge for Israel, and what can be done. So, Roy, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
All right. So, hi everyone, and thank you, Yael, for the introduction. So, yeah, I will take the next few minutes to give you a little bit of an insight of how we analyze the effects of social media on this whole conflict that we just went through. And I know this is a very contentious topic, and there's a lot of frustration from what's going on in social media. And I think it's, in part, it's an extension of some phenomena that we've seen all over the world, especially in the US in the last several years. And in some ways, there's, there's the specific adaptation of social media in the Middle East and specifically in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So first of all, let me share with you a few slides.
You have rights to share his screen.
So I think I can. Let me try it. So
yeah, we could see it, Roy. Thank you.
You can see it. Okay.
Just make it big. Perfect.
Okay. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about how this whole escalation started. Some people even call it the TikTok Intifada, and some of the escalation, especially with regard to the Palestinians in East Jerusalem and the Arab population inside Israel. We've seen the escalation, we've seen the radicalization really pushed by social media. And in fact, it's not a new phenomenon. It's not the first time that we've seen that. When I was commander of the open source unit in 8200, in 2015, we had a wave of what was called then lone wolf attacks. And it was actually not really lone wolves. Yeah, the perpetrators, they acted alone, and they did all these drive-by shootings and stabbings and all these kind of ramming attacks with cars. And I don't know if you remember, it was a few years ago, and it was quite a wave of attacks, up to 2, 3, 4 attacks each day. And when we analyzed this this phenomenon, we realized that it was actually caused by Facebook. So then it was Facebook, and although the terrorist organizations try to promote or try to ride a wave, actually this whole thing was a kind of a viral or a network phenomena, a cultural phenomena. And that's why most of the perpetrators were very, very young kids, Most of them 17, 18, some even younger. And I have a friend in the was was then in the jail authority, and you know in security jails in Israel, there are uh, pre, there are departments. You either go to the Fatah department, you go to the Hamas department, according to your affiliation. And when these kids were brought in, they were asked, those who survived the attacks, they were asked, okay, which organizations are you affiliated with? And they couldn't answer. They weren't affiliated with any organization. And the heads of the sheep bed came to us then, and they said, you got to help us because we don't have any files on these kids. These kids didn't even cheat at school. I mean, they're totally clean, and they were really radicalized by this network effect, and actually the effect behaved like any other viral phenomena. Any other online trend just went up and then went down, and it wasn't cool anymore. And then we saw when the age of the attackers started to rise, then it was a sign that it becomes less cool and less viral, and then the wave actually subsided. And we saw the same thing this year with TikTok, which is for the youngsters, is as popular as Facebook was 6 years ago, and is viral and as sticky with its algorithms to draw them in and draw them into this trend. And this whole escalation started with the trend of youngsters filming themselves, hitting Haredi Jews or hitting Jews in East Jerusalem, or burning Israeli flags and so on. And this wave, it was of course not the only element that caused the escalation and the radicalization, but it was a very big factor, especially in the behavior of youngsters within the mixed population areas in Israel, when there was very severe rioting. This very uncharacteristic, uh, uh, comparing to previous operations. Um, and why does that happen? And it's all been discussed, in the U.S. For the whole last couple of years, very intensely, and especially after the Capitol attack, right, or the Capitol riots. People are being radicalized because they're being thrown into their echo chamber, and their recommendation engines draw them in, the algorithms of the social media networks try to keep them as long as they can connected to the network, connected to the application. And they spend hours over hours of absorbing these any kind of content that are being drawn into, and eventually they find themselves radicalized. And of course, misinformation, disinformation, as Yael mentioned in the beginning, can spread very quickly and unfiltered. So I think one of the images that spread very quickly, uh, there was, in the evening, uh, after after Hamas shot the first rockets at Israel, at Jerusalem, there was a small fire on the Temple Mount, and it caught one of the trees just above the Western Wall. And there was a video of youngsters dancing, because it was Jerusalem Day celebrations, dancing in the Western Wall before the Western Wall, and you could see the fire burning on the Temple Mount and supposedly burning in Al-Aqsa Mosque. And you see the young Jewish people dancing and joyful as the Al-Aqsa Mosque is burning it. And this was a very, very powerful, very viral image. And of course, it was immediately interpreted either intentionally or unintentionally as the Jews are burning Al-Aqsa and rejoicing, and this became this spread and caused a lot of the escalation. Then Hamas escalated heavily, and everything went out of control. And then when when this fighting started, we saw the Palestinian narrative. I know this caused a lot of frustration to you and your families and so on. We saw and also here that the pro-Palestinian narrative spreads way faster and wider than the pro-Israeli narrative. And the tendency is first blame the Hasbara, blame the Israeli speakers for not being prepared with the arguments, or blame the hypocrisy of some of the opinion leaders in the West. But in fact, it's something very almost physical. First of all, it's the power of numbers, because these algorithms, the moderation algorithms of social media networks, are influenced by quantities of reports, by the number of people liking, disliking, or reporting as harmful pieces of content. And what can we do? There are many more Muslims in the world than Israelis and pro-Israelis and Zionists. So we saw that simply by being outnumbered, you already met some kind of bias in social media. The second thing was the power of social media influencers, and regretfully, the Palestinian side did a much smarter, much faster use of these influencers. And we're talking about people like Gigi Hadid and people who have a lot of social media fans in some platforms, and influencers matters, as any marketing expert knows, and the Palestinians were quicker to use their own influencers, and I'm not sure that the pro-Israeli side really mapped the network influencers correctly and utilized correctly the assets that the pro-Israeli side has. And it does have some assets on social media. And the third thing is Palestinians, pro-Palestinian groups have developed over the years a lot of proficiency in using social media in what I call virality hacks, and gaining virality not only by sheer numbers, but also by using these hacks or tricks to utilize social media and promote their message. So one of the hacks they're using is hashtag hijacking. Just take the most popular hashtag. For example, I don't know, there was a game on the NFL that was really everyone's talking about on Twitter. You take the hashtag of this game and you write it inside your tweet when you write something about the cruelty of the IDF or the cruelty of the Israelis, and you put some image inside, and then you get to a much wider audience. You get to audience that you wouldn't have gotten to if you didn't use this kind of hack. Same thing with trending keywords, the same use. And they also have their own troll armies, or they're also called online mobs, which are really close-knit groups that have their own communication network, and they operate in unison to create a very effective messaging campaign. Because if they all repeat the same message, the same hashtag, they can create a virality, they can push their message much harder. And we've got to admit that this, war of this information war is not, there's no symmetry here, and I think the Palestinian side has some innate advantages when they go into information war. First of all, they don't have to say the truth. The standards in truth telling and fact checking that are being put on the Israeli side are others when it relates to the Palestinian side, and this creates phenomena that we know by the name of Hollywood, which is meant to exaggerate. There is suffering, there is pain in the Palestinian side, but it's all very controlled. And this is another very important point, that in Israel you have free press, and there's freedom of press is guaranteed to the other to the reporters. And while in Gaza, most of the reporters are being intimidated or they're submissive, and the reports are very controlled. And if in the past we could leverage some of the people posting online through social media, this is also controlled very strictly by Hamas. And for example, you did see any Hamas fighters during this whole event, right? We were fighting only the babies, only the injured people. The enemy was almost invisible. You could see you could only see the rockets. You couldn't see any of the Hamas fighters. Only the propaganda videos, which are solely in Arabic. And it's they of course have very other standards when in showing blood and gore, and this also becomes viral, and this is something you can't compete with. I think in this event we had a kind of a tie with viral images. On one hand, you had the towers being destroyed by the Israeli Air Force. But on the other hand, I think the virality of the images created by Iron Dome, which serves the Israeli narrative of attackers versus defenders. I think that the virality of this, and the image on the right you can see here, almost became a meme with a lot of funny jokes being posted about it. It kind of helped a little bit push the Israeli narrative. How can we cope with all these disadvantages that we have in this information warfare? First of all, I think what works best for the Israeli side, and again, this is asymmetric, and we've got to remember that. So we can't compete in symmetric terms with the Palestinians. We can't compete with our suffering. We can't compete with who's just and who's who shot first and who's more violent. But we can compete with what we have, and they have almost zero of, which is empathy. And it's sometimes it's almost counterintuitive, but showing empathy to the other side, although it's the attacker, it's not the just side, actually gives advantages to Israeli speakers or people who promote the Israeli messaging, because if you if you ask someone from the Pro Palestinian side to show any kind of empathy to the residents of Israel under rockets, you would very, very rarely find any empathy there, because there's a lot of hate on that side. And I think that's an advantage we should leverage. And of course, we should be more sophisticated in social media. I think we have a lot to do there. The Jewish mind who invented most of these social media algorithms, most of these social media tricks, and did it for advertising, for financial gain, can be more sophisticated when dealing with the information war challenge. And there's a lot of things we can do much better, but this is not something that we can do without preparation. It's not something that we can do immediately. We need to build long-term infrastructure in social media to enable us to respond in real time, to build our assets, gather our following, build our messaging, and do a lot to prepare better for this side of warfare, which has become pretty decisive in those days, because it really affects public opinion, and eventually even affects decisions of our leaders.
Roy, thank you so much. If you unshare your screen, I have a couple questions to ask you, if that's possible. We still have a few more minutes before we have to go today. So I had a question on my chat. Do hashtags really work?
Yes, I think that hashtags work because some people, that's the way they use to follow topics, and this is one of the ways that the algorithms who make up our feeds in social media rely on to recommend and to bring us more content. So if we read things with a certain hashtag, we get more content with the same hashtag.
Amazing. I love your message of love and not hate. And I think that that's the perfect message to tell out to all of our Jewish National Fund USA supporters. Continue spreading love, obviously, and not hate. Roy, thank you so much for joining us today and taking time out of your busy schedule. I wish I wish we could all, get together again when it's a little bit less crazy. We could hear a little bit more about what we can do. And just thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks. And for everybody else on this call today, I am reminding you that tomorrow we'll be back at 7 p.m. Israel time. And all I could say is for all of you out there in the rally, please be safe, please be smart. We worry about you as well. And good night from Jerusalem.